Hello and welcome to the Collective Basketball Agreements Podcast. I'm your host, Joe Manganiello. We're talking LA basketball today. LA Sparks, an original WNBA franchise. They've been down on their luck for a stretch here, 4 consecutive years missing the playoffs, but something tells me they are going to be a bit more formidable this upcoming season. A lot to love about their moves. We're going to break it all down here. Let's start with their fundamentals. The 2024 season saw them really, really low. I mean, as low as it gets, 8-32. They were last in the Western Conference. They did not make the playoffs. They had a 98.6 offensive rating. That is last place. Their defensive rating, not that much better. 9th out of 12 teams with a 107.7. They had a minus 9.1 net rating, 11th in the WNBA. Only the Dallas Wings were lower than that. They have 3 guaranteed contracts on the books for this upcoming season. Dearica Hamby, Kelsey Plum, we're going to talk about that, and Azura Stevens. Note that Hamby and Plum both have a $202,000 salary. With Plum, that's significant because she was entitled for a Supermax salary, $249,000. So that's a significant savings. I mean, that's about a 25% discount, but she and Hamby line things up. That gives the Sparks that much more flexibility to round out their roster and continue to build things out. 11 unguaranteed contracts on the books, so they don't have any roster spots as of today, but between now and training camp, I'm sure they will clarify that. $252,000 in cap space. So again, Plum giving them a haircut on the salary really is material because they don't have that much cap space to finalize things. If Plum took the full Supermax, they would be, at about $200,000 in cap space. So big savings there. And the Sparks have the number 9 pick and the number 21 pick. So I'd be curious if they can turn that 21 pick, late second round, if they can find somebody, maybe a 4th or 5th year senior type from the college game that can show up on day one and contribute. I'm thinking like Kate Martin style. But they could also go international and draft and stash someone as well. Can the Sparks break this playoff drought? Can they be a competitive team? Head coach Lynn Roberts is bringing a more modernized approach to the offensive side of the floor, coming from the college game, the Utah Utes. And again, the Sparks could use some juice. Scoring less than 100 points per 100 possessions, I mean, that means that if you break it down to per possession, that means that more often than not, they were scoring less than a point per play, right? If you do that quick math. So what does that mean? I mean, that means like a typical possession last year for the Sparks was pick and roll, stifled, pass, rescreen, stifled, pass. Now the shot clock is coming down, hoist up a jumper, brick. And then maybe the next possession down the floor, something similar, but you get to the foul line and you make 1 out of 2 shots and, just really bad sequences. But I think they're going to be a lot better. Kelsey Plum is a fantastic talent. The decision for the Aces to turn Plum into Jewel Lloyd is fascinating. I think you could argue Lloyd is a better pure scorer, but the thing with Plum she has such great upper body strength as a lefty who gets the defense off rhythm, backpedaling. Now she's getting into your body. You're going to foul her, put her on the line unless you let her get a clean look. She's got the step back 3-point shot. She's really lethal in transition. The comparison to James Harden on the NBA side of things is very obvious because they're both lefties and they have great strength. And they're not the fastest players, but their athleticism is sneaky. I think the way that Plum steps onto the floor and lifts up these young, up-and-coming players around her is going to be a really, really compelling basketball story. I can't wait to watch Plum and Cam Brink run some pick and roll, pick and pop together. In general, this team is really big. Center Mercedes Russell, 6'6", age 29 player on a $160,000 salary. and she was able to agree to that salary the same as she got paid in Seattle the 3 years before that. It's a really good value deal. Azura Stevens is 6'6", De'Erica Hamby 6'3". And Hamby, by the way, is coming off a 17-point, 9-rebound, 3-assist all-star season with a near 57% true shooting percentage. Cam Brink, had a lot of injuries, but her potential as a pick-and-pop threat and as a forward that can be a fulcrum on offense, I'm super excited about. Then you add in a pair of wings, 6'2" Rickea Jackson, 6'2" Ray Burrell. And Ray Burrell, by the way, had an incredible unrivaled season. And so I would still project Rickea Jackson long-term to be the higher priority in terms of minutes and games started. But Ray Burrell is someone who is going to be a fixture on this team. So, Plum, Russell, Brink, Stevens, Hamby, Jackson, Burrell. They also added Odyssey Sims at guard. So a rotation guard on a modest $130,000 salary. This is a team that goes from being just substandard, not competitive, not consistent enough to win games, to they have a legitimate rotation. And they had the number 2 pick, but because of the Jewel Loyd Kelsey Plum trade, they dropped down to the number 9 pick. But to be honest with you, getting Cam Brink and Rickea Jackson in the top 4 of last year's draft, it's kind of like you already had a lottery pick, or to put it differently, like you have a lot of mouths to feed. You have young players that need to get on the floor. So although, typically I would mark off points when you trade out of the number 2 pick in a year where the number 2 pick could be Olivia Miles, who is like a just hyper efficient, dynamic guard who can push the ball in transition. But I think this team is okay. You get Kelsey Plum, you don't really need a game-changing guard. Plus, you have Rickea Jackson and Ray Burrell, and you have all this size in the front court. Like, I think they just need to roll the ball out there and get playing. It's going to be a 44-game season. Like, who they are on game 1 and who they are on game 44, I expect a lot of improvement and plenty of development from the young players and the veteran players alike. And you do still have the number 9 pick. And I think this year that could be a whole lot of really quality players from the college game. So I'm excited. I think that to put it simply, the LA Sparks are poised to improve in a significant way, and I think have a chance to be the most improved team in 2025 in the WNBA. I don't know that I'm ready to say they're in the class of Indiana, Phoenix, Seattle, Las Vegas, let alone New York, Minnesota. I think like the question of who's going to be better, LA or Atlanta, is pretty interesting. Atlanta is a team similarly that has been kind of defined by mediocre results and high draft picks in recent years. They add Brittany Griner and Brianna Jones. I think you could argue LA added even more talent. I think Kelsey Plum versus Brittany Griner is a pretty interesting question. Like, who, if you're building out a top 10 WNBA players, top 15 WNBA players, who would you slot over the other? Which player would you slot higher? Obviously, very different player types. I think from a team building standpoint, I like what LA is doing more than Atlanta. And if you want to hear more of my thoughts on that, listen to the Atlanta episode. I just think what LA is doing makes sense. They have a ton of size. They're going to rebound well. And the swing factor might just be like shooting efficiency, and they space the floor well enough. Is Cam Brink going to be able to hit the 16, 18-footer with regularity? A season ago, their best three-point shooting performance was Azura Stevens at 35%. pretty impressive considering that she's, a nominal big with great size, but she only played 20 games last year. Rickea Jackson was shooting 34.7% from three as a 23-year-old. She played in all 40 games. Can she get that up to 37%, 38%? Ray Burrell, similar question. Cam Brink was only at 32%, but she only played in 15 games. So I really hope that she can stay healthy, stay on the floor, and, get that to tick up. Dearica Hamby was their best player at getting to the free throw line, but that's not her strong suit, only a 63% shooter. I think that's probably the area that Kelsey Plum can help the most, is on possessions where, they're up against a team that can stunt, that can get them off their spots, that can guard out to the three-point line. Kelsey Plum make something happen, get into the paint, and earn trips to the free throw line for free points. I think that could be the difference between them being a, call it, bottom 5 offensive rating team to a middle of the pack or maybe even above average offensive rating team. So really excited. We'll find out even more about what this team's going to look like after the draft and after they use the number 9 pick. But I'm going to wrap it up there. Let me know what you think about the LA Sparks, what you think about the Kelsey Plum Jewell Loyd trade, and stay with us. We still got plenty more WNBA free agency recaps to get done here. I'm your host, Joe Manganiello. Thanks for listening.